Circular breathing. So the first part of circular breathing that you need to realize that there's two tanks that you can get your air from. One is your lung air, and that's for your main air when you're playing your sound until you run out or until you start to run out. The second little reservoir is in your mouth, is in your cheeks. So kind of like this, when you're in the pool with your friends, and you spit water out at your friends, think about spitting water out at your friends while you breathe in like this. So when you spit out water at your friends in the pool, you're just using the pressure by squeezing your mouth together, squeezing your cheeks together, and that forces the water out of your mouth. Same thing is going to happen when you're using the reservoir of your mouth in your transition in your circular breathing. So you're going to do that like you're spitting water out, but at the same time, because you're only using your mouth air and not your lung air, you can use your lungs to breathe in. So you're not using your lungs at all when you spit out that water, so your lungs are available to run the other way. So spitting the water out, just using your cheeks, really kind of cut this off right here, and don't do anything with your lungs. See how I'm not even breathing, I'm just, that's the action that you're going to take when you breathe that, when you do your transition in your circular breathing. So that's the first part. Practice that. Practice spitting out water or pushing out the air, and then you have the ability to use your lungs to breathe in. So they're just sitting there, not doing anything. So that's the real key part, is that your lungs aren't doing anything, so they're available for you to use. If you're only spitting out water with your cheeks, if you do this, that's using your lungs there, but you're just using the cheeks and your pressure of your mouth, the pressure of your cheeks to spit that water out, to spit that air out. So that's the process. If you can get that little piece of spitting out with your mouth and breathing in through your nose, now you've got your way to refill your lungs. And then as your lungs are refilled, then you could use your lung air and use them to make your sound. And it's going to sound like there's going to be a break. So if you could just do it one step at a time. So there's three things going on. One is that I'm pressing the air out with my cheeks. Two, I'm breathing in through my nose. Three, I'm breathing out with the lung air that I have. And once you get that cycle going, it just, the transition between each of those three things gets shorter and shorter and shorter, so that it's more of a seamless thing as much as possible. But I just want to say that although this is really cool to do, it seems like the coolest thing that I found after playing didgeridoo for over 12 years is as you're holding that vibration, playing that sound, and then it stops. On that stop, that is the most beautiful thing, is that when it's kind of like holding up all of the particles up and then just dropping. There's this silence and there's stillness. So that is really just as important as, holding that sound up there. So here's what it looks like all together. So I'm going to do each step one at a time. Let's start with the lung air. So I'm just going to play a sound out of the didgeridoo. That's me just letting the air out of my lungs. Now, here's me spitting the air with my cheek air. So there's nothing happening in my belly and in my lungs right now. And And then if I add that other step, now I've got my air. So now I'm going to add the 2 steps together, number 2 and number 3, the mouth air and the breathing in. I know it sounds weird, but that's the way it goes. So you're spitting out just with your cheek air, and then breathing in while you do that. So just practice those one at a time until you get them all figured out, and then you could just do breathing out of your mouth with your cheek air and breathing in through your nose, like I'm doing right here. If you get that, that's kind of the hardest part of the whole thing, but you kind of get used to it after a while. And if it helps you, this is the way that I was taught, is you put water in your mouth and you just spit it out onto the ground, and then you practice breathing in through your nose as you're spitting out through your mouth, because that really is the real brain fart going on, is realizing that you can do that you've separated out the cheek air from the lung air. That's the thing. So here it is all together. So it sounds pretty seamless because there's still some air coming out of my lungs at the same time that I'm breathing the cheek air out and breathing in. So it all kind of, it starts to blend together. But here's what it sounds like when you haven't blended it together. Hard to remember how it sounded like when I didn't blend it. I'll try better. That's the way it sounds. So even though I've been playing for a long time, when I try and go back to that, it sounds like I just started today. But it starts to blend and you start getting into the rhythm. So there's 2 ways that you can breathe in too. One is a short breath, so it's wah 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 wah, and then there's this long breath where you exhale long and then you inhale long. So I'll give you the 2 here. There you go. So just takes practice, but the first thing is you got to separate out those things. And then also remind you about the guy who's on YouTube that has a half-filled glass of water with a McDonald's straw. McDonald's straw works better because they're a little bit fatter, or a little bit bigger straw, and you twist off the end of the straw so it's almost closed off. And what that does is that creates a back pressure, which is easier to work with, and you start blowing through the straw while you're getting the cycle going, and it helps to separate out I'm trying to make a sound with I'm trying to breathe. So get the sound going on the didgeridoo. I didn't do this for 2 years with the breath, and that worked for me. Don't try and do the breath work right away. It'll be too frustrating for most people. Just get the sound, and then once you got the sound going on, then work on the glass of water and get the cycle of the breath, and work on that that whole in the pool exercise thing where you're spitting water out of your mouth while you breathe in through your nose. Get that cycle going so you know you can do it. So you're kind of training the brain to realize that you can use the lungs in that way. So that's it. Just going to take more practice. Watch this video over again if you need to. I hope this helps.